Hello everyone, Speedy G here. I kind of wanted to do a video talking about some of the recent potential changes that AMG went over last week. I'm not sure how the opinions are of everyone else out there. I know I've been looking at different opinions, talking within my own player group and listening to their different opinions. And I know that the changes that they went over on the stream were mostly talking about potential changes and probably not even all the potential changes. I don't know if what they're were showing us on the stream was the full encompass of what X-Wing is going to look like under AMG. Now, I know I've been hearing and reading that people have been talking about, is this X-Wing 3.0? Maybe it is. Maybe it's 2.5. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But the good thing is, from everything I'm gathering, is if they whatever the changes are, they're talking about making changes to the core mechanics of the game itself, right? The rules, not necessarily going through and what we had in going into 2.0, which was a complete change of cards, the chassis of the ships, their dials, all those different things. So those things would obviously aren't going to change. They are what they are. What the changes are that they're talking about are rules. How do you actually physically play the game? And I have tons of notes here that I've taken. So I'm just going to kind of go over it based off of what they had on there, and we'll see how this video goes. So the first thing that they talked about was deficit scoring. So one of the problems in X-Wing has been looking at the bid war, right? How far how much of a bid can I have to ensure that I move in the order that I want to move in the game? And I've seen some crazy bids out there in the past. And there's so many either ships that you aren't able to play, or card upgrades you aren't able to put in there because of deficit scoring. And then quite honestly, for the opponent, it just becomes almost a negative playing experience, because there is just nothing in some cases I'm able to do in the game to be able to win or make it so at least it's a fun game, right? Now, there are different kinds of players out there. I know there's casual players, there's competitive players. And I think where most of these rule changes are going to affect is going to be more of the competitive player versus the casual player. Casual player, you know what? Honestly, you can do whatever you want. Follow whatever rules you want. If you want to still do 1.0 rules, by all means do that. But this is talking about, more of the competitive. And so one of the things they talked about was deficit scoring. And what that means is, so the points you're able to play up to in the game is 200 points. Anything below that would then go to your opponent right off the bat. So if I went into a game and I'm at 198, I'm automatically giving my opponent 2 points, versus the other way around, I'm basically holding on to 2 points that they can never get in some cases, right? So if they said that if a game is played right, and if you're the one with the lower points, there would be no way for your opponent to ever get those points. If you're a great player, you're just being extremely dodgy and skirting on the outer edges, being really cagey with the way you're playing the game. Me as your opponent will never be able to score those points. So if you're going to go into a game with less than 200 points, you're welcome to do it, but just know you're giving those points to your opponent right off the bat. So that was one of the things they talked about early on stream. The next one they talked about was player order. Now this one has been the one that they announced was going to be happening a couple weeks ago. I think they had it on Facebook and Twitter on what this change was going to be. And I think the presumption was that it was going to be a random player order done at the very beginning of the game, and then that was it. So right now, obviously, if you have a lower bid, you get to choose who goes first and who's second. Um, so in order to make that random, they were going to implement utilizing a die. Now, some of us, if you go into it and you're um, equal points, right? So we're both 200 points. You still have to implement some kind of random player order anyways, and normally you would have the other person call hits or misses. You roll one die and that's it. Which is great, I think, for if you just have a couple players. They're also talking about having this game, the rules at least incorporate multiple players. You know, if you're playing, aces or some of the maybe future scenarios or different things like that. Some of the epic play or some of the other things that were in there for I think the asteroids and the aces packs and some of those other packs, right? They had different scenarios that were in there. And some of those scenarios can be played with multiple players. So how do you make it random then for multiple players? So they are talking about utilizing a 3-die roll where if whoever has the most crits is the player one, right? There is no, okay, I got the most crits and now I get to choose who's going to be player one. No, it's you roll, you're it. So first crits, then it goes into who has the most number of focus, and then who has the most number of hits. And if there's ties, you just keep rolling until you have winners there. So I think what people weren't expecting though was what people have been termed as road, random order after dials. So each round it's a random order. And that's going to be something that's going to be really different. I've tried testing it out at least on a couple games. Obviously, if you don't have initiative overlap, it really doesn't matter. It's going to really determine when you have those initiative overlaps and how that's going to be playing out. Obviously, if I have a higher initiative than you, you're going to be moving first just the same. Nothing changes there. What they're hoping to do with this is get you to engage more. They feel that this is a dogfight game, not a game where I just stay on the outsides and take forever before there's any engagements. They're really trying to push engagement in this game. Let's see what else. This is going to be, I think, one of those things that we'll all have to get used to. So when AMG took over, they've looked at the game and they've started putting together their thoughts, their philosophies on what this game should be, not what FFG's thought process was, right? So this is a whole new company that's taken over. They're going over all the rules, and now they're going through and saying, okay, this is how we think the game should be played for a sustainable long-term game. Now, one of the things that I'm excited about is that when they're looking at it, they are looking at this being a game that's going to be out there for a very, very long time. And they're trying to anticipate changes that are going to be coming up, make sure that whatever that rules are, that it makes it an engaging game, right? It's a game played with someone else, and if you're not engaging with those other people, then why are you playing a game, right? If you wanted to just play a game by yourself, go play solitaire, right? It's a solo game. But this is a game where you're supposed to engage with other people, so engage with them. They also are, wanting, since they want this to last, I'm excited as a player because that means that this is a game that I love to play, and they're looking at it lasting forever, so that means they're going to be putting their time and effort into a game for it to continue. So just some of my thoughts there. Again, random player order. I thought it was going to be something that was going to be done at the beginning, that they weren't going to be going back and forth each round. Things can get very complicated, I think, from that standpoint. So we'll just see how that goes. Still a lot to come, but they did confirm as far as rules changes that random order was going to be something that is 100% going to happen. They may still be tweaking on what exactly it's going to look like, but it is happening. It is coming. I would say go ahead and start at least practicing your games that way. I think they're looking at some of these rules coming out by the end of the year. We don't know what the total rule changes are going to be. Again, my opinion is I think there's going to be a pretty massive rule change, and they're trying to make sure that all the different rules that are changing all work with one another. So there's going to probably be other rules that are going to be coming out that's going to be working with road to ensure that it makes sense, especially with any concerns with bumping. The other thing they said about road was that even if you do establish first player at the beginning of the game and that is it throughout the entire game, that person can still play the game for their optimal advantage, meaning they can still hold back and not engage. And they really want to ensure that you're engaging in this game, that you're playing the game as intended and not just sitting back and making it a game that no one is interacting with. Let's see. The other thing they talked about was a ban and restricted list. Now, this is something they talked about during the extravaganza. I kind of felt like, in a sense, they already had, if you will, implemented a ban list by just pricing things to the point where they're unplayable. What they're basically saying is, we're not going to price it to the point that it's unplayable. We're just going to flat out say, you can't use this card. Or you're restricted by how you can use this card. Some examples that they gave out was any card that allows you to look at dials. So they want to make the dials, what they said, sacred again. They want to make sure that there's no peeking at the dials, that whatever you have in there, whatever you put in on the dial, that it stays concealed until you reveal it. So that's going to be interesting to see how that looks like. They did mention a card, Luke Gunner. So if anyone is familiar with Luke Gunner, where you're able to change your turret, they said for sure, banned, done. And because of this ban restricted list coming into play, that they are doing away with hyperspace. And that it's just going to be basically a standard versus an extended. To me, it just sounds like they're just doing away with the word hyperspace and just replacing it with standard. I think what it is they're also going to have other formats where it's narrative. We're going to have scenarios or different things like that. And so because of those different types of formats, they're just changing the naming convention from hyperspace to standard. Extended obviously is still extended. And again, with all these lists or all these changes, these are potential changes, but they are doing a ban and restricted list that's going to be coming out, just like road, or not road, but random order is a change that is coming. But when, hopefully at the end of the year, is what they're looking for. And then what other changes there are, we don't know yet, but they did go through some of those other potential changes, which I'll continue talking about here. They did mention that I guess they were looking at sidebar as a potential. I think they're starting to lean away from sidebar, which is a good thing, because having to constantly be changing out your list for every game, I think, could be quite complicated. Let's see, what else did they talk about? So here's another one. This is one that I haven't seen a lot lately, but I think it was utilized quite a bit at the beginning, and that is that once you scored your half points, they stay. So you'll be able to keep track of scores throughout the game. And once you make half points, there is no regen to be able to get you back up to half. The good thing about regen is that it'll keep you from potentially dying, but it won't take away those half points, which I think is a good thing. Again, there was a lot of games early on in 2.0 where you would have the half points. I want to regen that shield back, and now you no longer have those points. Now, once you've gone through the effort of throughout the entire game of getting those points, you will be able to keep those points. I think it'll be interesting to see what they probably do with the points for those cards that allow you to regen. I think a lot of them had gotten priced so that way they weren't being used, and I think for the reasons I stated about you going back up to over half, and therefore you take those points away. Now those points won't go away, so maybe we can still have regen back in the game by having the points decrease, so that way they're there. We'll see. Let's see what else they talk about. 3 dice versus 1 dice. This is, again, I mentioned earlier about multiplayer and be able to incorporate all formats into the game. So that's why they're looking at 3 dice versus 1 die. Point changes are still going to be happening throughout the year as needed. They didn't seem to be focused on having changes be stagnant, meaning every 6 months there's going to be a change. I think what they're looking at from a points standpoint is if there are points that are needed to change, they'll go ahead and change them. They'll do it when they need them. Let's see what else. I think the other thing they mentioned was looking at some of the ships that are fragile. There could be some changes made to those ships so that way they're not as fragile, right? We all know you can have that all those points put into a Sunterfell or Finral or something like that, and even though you're rolling those 3 dice, they do what they do, and you roll blanks and you get nothing, and all those points you put in that ship are now gone. So there's definitely some ships out there that are fragile to the dice roll, and I think they're looking at that. I don't know what those changes could be. Could there be future configs, if you will, for those ships, so that way they can have a little bit more health. Again, maybe regen's a way for them to be able to get some health back if they lose it. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. They didn't really go over what they would do there, but it is something they're at least considering. So here is another big one that they went over, and this is bumping. So they talked about even though you bump, 2 things could still happen, right? So one thing that you'll still be able to do when you bump that you're not able to do now is have an action. So right now, if you bump into a ship, you lose your action. There's nothing you can do. What they're talking about is implementing that you're able to either focus or calculate. I would presume, depending on what's on your action bar, if you're like a droid or something, you can only calculate something like that. So they're making it so that way you at least get that action minimum. You won't be able to do a target lock or a barrel roll or anything else, but you will be able to at least have a mod of some kind, whether offense or defense. The second one that they went over was normally when you bump into another ship, the ship that you're bumped against, you're unable to attack. So at range 0, you're unable to attack. They are saying now that a potential change is that you will be able to attack at range 0. You do not get any range bonus, and obviously if you are planning on doing bumps, you probably want to make sure that you have an arc facing towards a ship that you can attack. This one's a little bit of a tough. Bumping is a big part of this game. We use bumping quite a bit to try to negate any actions from our opponent. We use it as a means to maybe prevent things from happening, right? But we also use it in a means to protect ourselves, right? If we're planning to do on a move, and maybe you want to bump yourself so that way you do not get into range for maybe a bomb, or trying to protect yourself from landing on an asteroid or something like that. So sometimes you do bumps intentionally on yourself to prevent things negative happening to you. But now think about it: if you're bumping, you can have your whole squad bump, and they all get a focus or a calculate token. So before, you would probably try to have one ship bump, but not all of them, because you didn't want to take away those actions. Now you can bump, still be okay, because you could have a focus token. Now, this is just my opinion on if they were to implement this. I think there should still be a cost. One idea I had is that if you do take a focus or a calculate after bump, that the cost should probably be a stress, right? You're really close to that other ship. They're talking about this, in a 3D world, right? There wouldn't technically be any bumping because you're in a third dimension, right? 3D. You're probably flying on top of one another, right? Even though you would probably be bumping, but because of that, that's one of the reasons why they're saying that. But I think there should still be a cost, and I think that cost should be a stress. The worst thing you can have is you have five T65s, right? They all bump, they all get a focus, they all get to attack, and since you're right there, maybe bumping against your opponent, you do a K turn or some other turnaround, right? And this can be any ship. So now you stress yourself, and now you're behind them. Well, if you're stressed, even though you got that focus, you can't turn around. You kind of limit that dial a little bit. So I think that's my opinion of a potential cost. They didn't talk about that. Again, in my opinion only. Tell me what you think on if there should be any costs to it. I think there should be. You shouldn't just get the focus or the calculate just because you bumped. So it's going to really change the way we play this game. If you think about a lot of the mechanics that they're looking at changing from bumping. Let's see, what else did they say? They've been testing these changes both internally and externally. Again, all these rules are still being tested. That's why they're not coming out yet. And there could be other rules to kind of go along with it that they haven't even mentioned yet in terms of how they work. There's usually when you're looking at a rule, if you're going through the rules reference, you're trying to figure out how something works. A lot of times you have to go reference A, B, and C, right? 2 different or 3 different rules because they're all interacting with one another one way or another. So that's one of the things they have to continue to look at. Let's see. They also said that one of the things that they're trying to do by telling us these changes is they're trying to be transparent. That's something that I am extremely excited about. I do believe that they should be transparent with their changes. For me as a player, though, I have troubles when they're being transparent because it's like, okay, well, tell me everything. I want to know everything so I can get started playing it that way. Them telling us what they're planning on doing creates both anxiety for me and excitement, right? I'm anxious because I may or may not like the changes. I don't know what the full look of this new game is going to look like. But at the same time, I'm excited to see where it's going to go, what the game is going to look like, how is it going to evolve, how's it going to evolve over time with any new ships or anything else that comes out. So I'm really excited about that. At the same time, I'm a little anxious. Another thing they talked about was ties. What happens if there's a tie right now? If at the end of the game there's a tie, they have final salvo. Well, you've played the whole game for an hour and 15 minutes, and now you're going to decide the game on a die roll. Not exactly what they're looking for. So they're looking at making some changes to this as well. So for official tournaments, they're saying that now you do have the potential to have a draw. So it's not just win or lose, it's win, lose, or draw, right? So that's a potential new change. I don't know if they're still calling it MOV, but MOV is now going to become a bigger part of the game. But at the same time, when they were talking about MOV, this one was a little bit confusing for me, and I think there's still a lot that has to be uncovered here. But they were talking about if you have two players, I win 0 to 26. So I get 26 points versus someone else that played, and they, was 100 to 126, right? The the person that got 100 is still going to be better off than the person that did 0, right? Even though maybe they won or lost, it doesn't matter, right? It's the MOV is becoming a bigger impact. They talked about this being a reason they want to do this is, again, to create the engagement in the game. I think that's a big overarching part that I was getting out of why they're making these changes is they want it to be a game that you play with someone else. So they want you to engage with that other person or other people, or if it's a multiplayer game, as opposed to just staying back. So that was a big reason why they talked about it. They used a term tower defense, right? They didn't want it to be just sit back and wait and wait and wait. But then they talked about utilizing some kind of what's called a ranking system for scoring. I'm not quite sure what this is going to look like. I kind of drew up what I think it's going to be in my head. It probably won't be anything like this, but I was thinking something like, okay, if you get 0 to 25 points, let's say you get a point. So if you get 25 to 50, you get 2 points, so on and so forth. So again, that's kind of how you're able to generate victory points, maybe something like that, as a way to get extra points that you're maybe able to add in, or as opposed to MOV, maybe it's victory points of some kind, based on the number of points you're able to destroy. So that could be a different way of looking at it, right? Because every ship's going to be different. They all have different points, right? So if you destroy a ship with a little droid, right, with 20 points, you destroy that, you get those 20 points, you get 1 point. As opposed to you only get half points on another ship, and you're only able to get maybe 25 points, right? It just could be a different way of doing it. I don't know what they're gonna do, but they're doing away with final salvo, and they are not afraid to include draws in there, but to still be able to determine a ranking system, right? Especially for tournaments, that you got to still have someone that's better than someone else, right? You got to have a rank. So this could be one way that they go about doing it. They did also mention, speaking of tournaments, that they will have both a round and a time limit. So obviously you got to have a time limit if you're in a tournament. If you've ever been to a tournament, they're already long enough as it is, and if you try to play those games to a certain point, we know that those games can go on for a very long time, and we're going to be tired, and we don't want to stay that long. So time limit is still going to exist. They're also talking about putting in a round limit, so if it happens to be a quick game, after you get through 12 rounds, the game is over, even if you still have 15 minutes still to go, right? That's it. That's where they feel that there's a completion to the game is after an hour. Again, so if you're going to want to get those points, right, if they do a ranking system, then you're going to have to get engaged early and quickly. This can probably be different for Rebel players, right? Have you heard that term, one to victory, right? The Rebels only move that range 1, and they just keep moving little by little, right? They want you to come to them, and they're just going to be slow to see where you're going to go. They may not be able to play like that anymore. They're going to have to probably go a little bit quicker, because they got to hurry up and engage, because there's going to be points that you need to acquire in order to be able to move up in a tournament. So we'll see how that goes. Getting near the end here, so just again, these are just some of notes that I took. I'm sure there's tons of things that I may have missed. Let me know what I missed. Let me know your opinions down in the comments section. But I'm getting near the end here, all right? So scenario play. They said it's coming. They don't have much to say on it right now. But they are looking at different scenarios. Maybe it's recovering supplies, protect an area or some kind of transport or something like that. Um, so they're looking at different scenarios. I don't know if this would be something that'll be put out at the end of the year or something that'll come out next year. But scenario play is just another different format that they're looking at versus standard and extended scenario. Just be a different format. And I think this would be something that they'll also incorporate into the competitive scene. And what format? I don't know. I don't know if it'll be something similar to Aces High or Hangar Bay or those kinds of things that you may have seen at some of the bigger tournaments. But they are looking at incorporating scenario play into competitive play. So we'll see how that turns out. Let's see. I talked about round and time limits, and I talked about sidebars. I think those are all the notes that I took. I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff that they'll be coming out with. I don't know how they're all going to incorporate with one another. I don't know how quickly we're going to see these rule changes. I'm hoping we see something big. I think we'll get a rules reference along with a tournament rules that'll probably come out at the end of the year. That's where I'm thinking. We'll see if that happens. I know they're going to probably start wanting us to get these rules, learning them for whenever they have worlds. I'm not a good enough player that I'll probably ever go to worlds, but I love this game. I love X-Wing. When I got into X-Wing, I was looking for a game that I can play and meet new people, and that's something that I've definitely done. I've met a lot of new people playing this game. I really enjoy the game. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I like Star Wars. So being able to fly as Luke or Han or Vader, Kylo, any one of those out on the board with my friends, make pew pew sounds as we're playing, having fun, rolling dice, seeing some of the cool combos that people are able to put together. I really enjoy it. Game night, hanging out with friends and just enjoying the game. The competitive part, I go to competition, tournaments and stuff like that. I enjoy those. I am not a good player. I am average at best, but I have fun and I meet new people, and that's the biggest part of this game that I get out of it. So will these changes prevent me from playing this game in the future? I don't think so. Again, they're not changing any of the ships or any of the dials or any of those things. What they're changing are the rules and how we play the game. And quite honestly, probably some of these rules probably should have happened at 2.0. But for whatever reason, these rules weren't that dramatically changed. And this isn't the first time they've made rules changes. I mean, they've made changes to how tractor beams work. That's a change that they've happened. This is just looking at multiple rules and how to change them. How do they incorporate into casual play versus tournament play? This is AMG's game now. They have their own philosophy on how the game should be played, and they're going to make those changes. Yes, I think they'll look at the input and whatnot from the community. That's why they are utilizing external testers, right? Those external testers are going to help that happen. So we'll see how everything turns out in the future. Let me know what you guys think. Are you anxious about these changes? Are you a little bit excited about these changes? I know everyone has different opinions about what they are. So just let me know what you think. Let me know your concerns. Let me know, what got you into the game. Also, let me know what other kind of videos you like to see out there. I know I've been putting out quite a few videos on just games I'm playing during Thursday nights. I kind of would like to incorporate different things, maybe different lists, different players, something I'm still working on. I would like to be able to add more to the videos so that way you guys are able to see more in terms of what damage is being done, maybe even the dice. I'm very limited on what I have access to, so hopefully I can get some cameras, so that way I can have different angles for you guys and be able to utilize more information. I have gotten some positive feedback on the videos, but if there's any other impact or questions or advice you guys have, I'm open to them. I want to provide this for the community, as just different games are being played in different parts of the world. I hope it's something you guys like. If you haven't, hit the subscribe button down at the bottom so you can see when the videos are coming out. I appreciate your time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And again, the Speedy G. Have fun playing games, guys. Remember, it's just games. Have fun. See you guys later.